Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. We are just about to get started. Let me get my screen up. Let me start this presentation. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am just doing one thing. I'm trying to make so I can see the start the presentation button. Sorry. Where does it start the slideshow? Okay, thank you all for joining us this morning. Can everyone see? If you could just raise your hand. I can't see everyone, but if you can see it, let me know. I'm going to start the slideshow, but I want to make sure that everyone can see and hear it. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. See, start slideshow. Okay, there it is. It's all set. Good morning, everyone. I am Latoya Morgan. And we're here today for the Pontiac Capacity Building Grant Program Information Session. Let me turn on my camera. Here we go. Here we go. Hi, everyone. And today we're going to talk about the Pontiac Funders Collaborative Information Session for the Capacity Building Grant that launched on April 15th. And so today we're just going to go over the grant guidelines, the changes to that, and provide you all with an opportunity to ask questions and to get more familiar with the opportunity if you have not been an applicant before. So as I said, my name is Latoya Morgan. I am a consultant with the Work Department, which is a women's owned design and strategy firm here in Detroit. And we've been supporting the work of the Pontiac Funders Collaborative in their work together since about 2018. And I'll go a little bit more into the Funders Collaborative and who they are and the funders that fund that on the next slide. But today I'm going to introduce myself. We're going to go over the Funders Collaborative. We're going to talk about the grant opportunities. I'm going to show you how to use Flux, which is the system for the grants if you have not used that before, and then provide everyone with an opportunity for questions and answers. And so please, if I'm not being clear, please save your questions to the end and I'll be happy to go back and clarify anything. We have Justin today as our support. And so he's going to keep everyone muted until the question and answers time. And then if you raise your hand, he'll unmute you so you can ask your question, or you can also put it in the chat. But since I have my screen up, I can't necessarily see everything. So he'll let me know what's going on. And so the Pontiac Funders Collaborative is a group of 9 funders engaging with leaders around how to work together towards shared goals. Now, these are 9 funders that fund in the Southeast Michigan area, and they have come together to grant through the Pontiac Funders Collaborative beginning in 2018, but they started working in Pontiac in 2019. And so the Funders Collaborative is a project of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. So you probably got an invite to this from the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. So the Funders Collaborative recognizes how many nonprofits and community organizations and civic institutions are doing amazing work, and they want to support with resources to help your organizations do this work. And even though this program is small, it is specifically for small and mid-sized organizations and individuals serving in public and civic roles. And so today we're going to talk about the 3 grant opportunities that are open through our competitive round, which is capacity building, and who they are, what those projects opportunities are, who is eligible, and how to apply, and let you know what our timeline is for that. So what is capacity building? So I know that word is used a lot. And so we've done a lot to try and clarify that, especially as what we mean by it. So in our previous definition, we defined it as strengthening people, tools, and resources to help organizations fulfill missions now and the future. And so we've refined it a little bit, and we did this in partnership with our grantees last year. So I'm just going to shrink this a little bit. And so we are further expanding it to include the development of internal systems, processes, and staff to drive the work of the organization. Capacity building includes funding to support the purchase of technical tools, consultant services, and staff services to advance the strategies for the organization's future sustainability. So that's a little bit more of an expanded definition, and it allows us to be able to support organizations who may need staff support, focusing on org programs and as well as operations. So that we've heard from our grantees in the past that their capacity building looks a little bit different, and especially in COVID has expanded a little bit in terms of what they need. And so this is what we have updated our definition to include, and we'll include some more examples later in the presentation of what that could look like. So also, this is a new feature in our guidelines. In the back of our guidelines, you should be able to access them on the Community Foundation's website for the Pontiac Funders Collaborative. There is a set of definitions in the back. And so what we've done a really intentional job around this time is to making sure to be clear about the things that we mean and the way those things will be funded and supported. So in previous iterations, there was not set of definitions, but we heard from our grantees that definitions help them to understand and follow us better. So there are a set of definitions in there as well. And then this presentation, I'll make sure to highlight what has been the changes in the guidelines or in the grant program since previous years. So this will be the third year. And when I say previous years, I mean the first 2 years of the Funders Collaborative work. Oops. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the first one we'll talk about is professional development for Pontiac leaders. And so this grant program is pretty much still the same, but the questions have changed just slightly. And so this grant, this is the first one, and this support for individuals working in civic, nonprofit, community organizations, can't see, to participate in professional development opportunities. And so this grant is for $2,500 to $5,000. And this is, so let's see. Okay, there it is. And so who is eligible? So this is for 501c3 organizations, but if you're not a 501c3, you can use a fiscal sponsor. And so the nonprofit must have a budget of under $1.5 million, must be based in Pontiac. There is a definition of what we mean by based in Pontiac or home based in Pontiac in our guidelines in the back. And there are 3 specific definitions. So you can either, use your home address if you're living in Pontiac. You can have a post office box showing proof of having it more than a year, I believe. It could be 2 years. And then the third one is to have an address of a partner organization that you are running programs out of if you are not, if you do not have a physical space to which you run your programs out of, but you are based in Pontiac. Have a minimum of 2 years of program delivery, at least 1 full-time person, staff or equivalent, or 1 full-time volunteer or equivalent. So that can be, a mixture of full-time folks who a mixture of part-time people who are working together that would make it a full-time position. A board of directors, representative of the community, and a letter stating the board approval for participation in the project or for the staff member. So professional development. So in the past, that's been for trainings, conferences, or certificates, coaching, and things like that. So organizations have been very creative about this. This could be professional development for whoever you determine to be a leader in your organization, whether that be staff, whether that be a board member or a group of board members. It's non-specific, and it's totally who you determine to be a leader in your organization. So we're not defining what leader is for your organization, and we leave that up to the applicant to choose who that would be. Let's go to the next slide. So applicants must show that training will improve your job functions, service delivery, or allow the individual to create new resources for the Pontiac community. So what we've had in the past is we've had applicants who are wanting to go to a group of staff member who are wanting to go to a training opportunity at the fundraising school at Purdue, just in Indiana, and they wanted to all go through that training together. That was something that was funded. We have had individuals apply to go to the Oakland University's nonprofit certificate program that has been funded. Those are just examples. They're non-exhaustive examples, but those are examples of what has been funded in Pontiac in the past. And so if you've applied for any of these grants in the past, everyone is eligible to reapply again for the same one or a different grant or under the umbrella in the future. And so these are the narrative questions. We've just refined them just a little bit, really to focus more on the needs of the organization and how your work will help to support the impactful work of the organization. So what the applicant would need to do is just to it's only 3 questions, but really just make the case around how your work will contribute to the future of the organization and why it's necessary for you to have this and how you can benefit yourself and the organization for whatever training or opportunity for yourself or for individuals in your organization that you would like to get professional development for. And so it's also helpful too to provide all the information about location and training opportunities in the application as well as a budget. There is a little bit more notes in the next slides about just making sure to have a budget for what the training would look like as well. And so this one is the organizational development for Pontiac organizations. In previous years, we called this technical assistance, but this year we kind of refined it a little bit around organizational development. And so we did this intentionally, and this is a change that is in this year's guidelines, is really to focus more on those really in-depth needs that the organizations are focused on, like projects, and not just, a single idea, but an idea that is needed in order to sustain the organization. We've had some really interesting projects, and this is just, some things that can be funded, but we just, these are things that have been funded and can be funded, but also how do you think about this in terms of what are your deep organizational needs and how that this funding will help to advance those. So as we said, this is for small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations to improve their capacity. And we've defined capacity in the earlier slides, but what are those systems? What are those staff? And how will that be able to help your organization to be more sustainable in the future? As we said, based in Pontiac, a 501c3 organization or one that needs a fiscal sponsor. I'll just make this note here about fiscal sponsorship. In the past, we have secured fiscal sponsors in OLSA and in Lighthouse of Oakland County. Applicants are free to identify their own fiscal sponsors. If they need one, we would just ask that you make sure to ask them for a letter saying that they will be serving in this role for you, but also make sure if you're using a fiscal sponsor that we don't already have a relationship with, there may be a fee. A fiscal sponsorship fee from that organization. So we just would like you to make sure if that is a cost in using that organization as a fiscal sponsor. As this is the eligibility is the same as it was for professional development. Again, at least one paid full-time staff or full-time volunteer or equivalent, a board of directors that is representative of the community, and a letter stating board approval for the organization's participation in or support of the components of the project. And so when I get to the timeline, we'll talk more about technical assistance support for me and application support and how I can support you in the development of your application. And so these are the narrative questions. So these have changed. If you've been an applicant in previous years, these have changed since 2020 and 2021, when the questions really were focused around COVID response. And what we have heard from grantees and what we've seen, is the world has opened up a little bit more. And so organizations are thinking differently about what their organizations need to sustain and to move forward in this new normal. And so we want to be able to support that and figure out ways that we can support grantees in that way. And so we've changed the narrative questions for this organizational development grant to focus on, what have been your successes and what were some roadblocks that you encountered there that that this funding could help you move through, or that we could help you think about ways to resolve. And so it's really asking the organizations to think about their organizational needs and communicate those to us, and being less prescriptive, even though we're not very prescriptive, but being letting the organizations guide us in what they need in support for their organizations and the future sustainability of those organizations. So these questions are: describe your engagement with the Pontiac community. What goals are you working towards to strengthen or grow your organization? What are the challenges exist in getting toward that goal? And how will you use this grant to address those challenges and help you achieve those goals? So it's just thinking about those organizational development needs, as I said, and then thinking about what are the challenges there and how you could resolve them and how this funding could help you to do that. And so that is very different from the questions before, but so we're supporting organizations in thinking for the future sustainability and thinking about future needs of the organizations, of your organization. And so the third opportunity would be collaboration. And so in the 2021 grant round is the first time that we introduced collaboration as a grant opportunity. So we're very excited to see future grant applications for this and to see how organizations will partner around this. And so this is support for any size nonprofit to work effectively, cooperate, communicate, or coordinate and build consensus and shared policies and practices between two or more organizations. And so this amount, I forgot to say that the organizational development amount was $10,000. This amount for this collaboration project is $15,000. And so I always tell grantees to really think, applicants, to really think critically about your partnership opportunities and how can this funding support that. So the eligibility is, it includes the other requirements that we outlined before, but one organization needs to be the lead applicant, and then the other one will be the support. But it needs to be laid out in your grant application of who those partners will be. And so this supports the capacity of the nonprofit organizations to work collaboratively together, and they can be in any stage. So you can be in formative stage, a newly developed stage, or an existing stage for collaboration grant opportunity. The applicants should consider how the grant will help you to build or to multiply your impact of your individual efforts. And so we've had grantees, come and discuss ideas. And what I always suggest to grantees is really think about what collaboration looks like. In this instance, collaboration isn't just two groups coming together and thinking, oh, we both get $7,500 in this grant, but really starting to think about what does partnership look like, and what are those efforts toward an effective collaborative partnership looks like, and how this funding would help you to implement or to move your partnership along. And so we've had in the past, we had two organizations that one was an after-school organization and a reading support organization and a parent organization. And their partnership came together around how the parent organization could help support the work of the education program for youth, and how to engage parents more effectively in that project and in that work. And so both of them have an interest that involves families. And so they were testing about an idea of how to move that work forward. And so this will ask you questions. I'll go to the next slide, which will show questions, to ask you to think about how far you are along in your collective agreement, and ask you if you have any sort of formal agreements or any sort of agreements amongst the partners about how you would work together. Because we have heard from the collaborative partnership that we supported previously, that was really an important part of them developing and building their partnership, was having conversations and agreements about how you would work together. And so I think the funders will be looking for organizations who are able to talk to you about what your agreements are on how you will work together. And also, I'm sorry about that. How you will work together, and what your work will look like together, or what problem you're trying to address together collectively. And so I think that's important for you to think about if you're thinking about a collaboration and what you will need as two organizations working together, and start to have some of those conversations. And so how to apply. So this is an important part that we will just spend some time going over the process around what does application look like. But before I get to that part, I just want to let you know that each of these applications, whether it be professional development or technical assistance or collaboration, will need these documents, unless they say optional, attached to your application. And so these are for the same documents for, unless it's professional leadership, where it says you will need the cost of training and transportation and lodging included in your application. And so this, you can apply for more than one of the grant opportunities, or you can apply for all three. But you'll only have to upload these documents once into the system. So I just wanted to make sure to make note of that before I move on to showing you the registration. So we just want to talk really quick, and then I'll show you what the registration form looks like, about registering in the Flux system. So if you're new to applying for a grant for the Pontiac Funders Collaborative through the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan, you will need to apply in the Flux system. And they ask that you apply about 10 days before the deadline for the application, which is September 12th. And so the deadline for registering in Flux is September 2nd, which I believe is Friday. And so who should apply, who should be registering in Flux? So anybody who would need to touch the application or sign for the application or approve the application will need to register in Flux. So if you are the grant writer for the organization, you will need to apply in Flux. But also if you if you are not the CEO or the executive director will also need to register in Flux as well, because they will have to sign for the grant and sign the grant agreement. So anybody who would be working on the grant or touching the grant in any way should register in Flux and be connected to the organization to have their own login and password. The system doesn't work with like having just one person and you sharing the password. Everyone needs to have their own password and login. So we're going to go now to the, what does that look like? Here you go. So this is what the registration system looks like, right? So when you come to this page, it's apply/registration through Flux. You can put in your, yes, so you will indicate if you are 501c3 or not. If you are not a 501c3, the system does not preclude you from registering in Flux. So if you're not a 501c3, you are okay to say you are not a 501c3. It just asks for if you're in the Southeast Michigan 7-county region. If you're not, that is okay as well. But I know everyone here is as well. I just don't want that to stop anyone from going through the process. Here, if you put in your EIN number, it'll look up a lot of your GuideStar information if you're in GuideStar, and then that information will already start to populate. And then here's where you put in your organization's legal name and all the other information about mailing and postal code and organization's phone numbers and things like that. So when you're registering in Flux, these things right here, where I'm highlighting right here, are the social media stuff. You can come back to that later. I think you just have to make sure to put in all the things with a red star for right now. And so then this would be the individual person who's registering, whether it be the grant writer, the development employee, or the executive director, or if they're all the same person, then you would put your information here. And then you would submit that request, and it will move you through the system. And so I just wanted to share that, have everyone to be familiar with what that system looks like. And the registration for Flux is also through the Community Foundation's website under the Pontiac Funders Collaborative page. You'll be able to access the registration portal if you are not already registered in the system. If you're already registered in the system as a previous applicant of the Community Foundation or grantee, then you are all set. This is just for if you are new to the process and have not done it before, or you're an existing organization and have a new person who will be working on your behalf to submit an application. So I will go back to the next page. So here, the application portal, I just wanted to let you know what that page looked like. And then we're gonna go look at that portal right here. And so here, I've already called it up, and here's what the portal looks like. So applying for a grant. This is the part that I know I always get a lot of calls about. So I want to get you ready to know what that looks for. So if you're applying for the Pontiac Funders Collaborative, you will go to apply for special opportunity. And you will select, oh, see, I knew that I would be logged out. So I need to log back in. See. Let's see. And so this is just a test account that we use to demonstrate how the system works. But we're just going to go back here. We're going to go back to apply for grant, which is on the left-hand side. All of the system controls for you are for the external portion will be on the left-hand side. And you will just go down to apply for special opportunity. And then you will go to select application type. And so here are those application types. So Pontiac collaboration, Pontiac leadership development, or Pontiac organizational development. So as I said, if you're applying, you can apply for all of these. They just are separate applications. And so I will just select one, say it's collaboration. And all of the documents that are necessary will pre-populate if you've already uploaded them during your registration. If not, you will have to, if you didn't upload them during your registration, then you will have to add them if they're required as part of the application. And so a good thing about this is that you can save and continue. It'll save it and you go to the next page. But if you have to stop for any reason, you can save it and close it and come back to your application. I will make a note to everyone though, if when you're done doing your application, you have to submit or select submit in order for the application to move from draft to move to being seen. If you're all finished with it and you're like, oh, I'm done, make sure you hit submit, or else it will not move from drafts to submit and complete, and then it will be reviewed after you select submit. It won't be reviewed if you don't select submit. So I was told to make sure to say that, like, if you finished it, make sure you don't just leave it in the drafts. Otherwise, it will not be reviewed or seen. And so when you go through, you put your title in, you put and how much. So I would also make sure to note that if you're applying for the Funders Collaborative funds, the technical assistance grant is the professional development grant is $2,500 to $5,000. You need to make sure to put a value in here after you've done your budget within that range. If you are applying for the organizational development, you need to put a value in with up to $10,000. And then for the collaboration, which is $15,000, you will need to put a value in up to that $15,000. If you put more than that, it's a very high likely that it will not be approved because it is outside of the budget range. And so I just want to make that note for everyone to know that and see what the ranges are for that grant and that you're applying for, and make sure you apply for the amount within the range. Your start date would probably start in November, but it's not a specific day in that, and the Community Foundation will identify that date for you. And the end date, they will, an approximate date. It is a 1-year grant. So, it's not 2 years, it's 1 year, it's not 6 months, it's 1 year. So that's how much it would be. And so they have the questions as I've described to you below, and you can just cut and paste from your Google Doc or document into the fields. Let's cancel that. So we'll go back to the presentation. Oops. Okay. So we're going to start back. So I've already covered the grant portal. If you've as you can see, I want to go right back for a second. So on the left side, You can see where drafts are. You can see where you're, if you're still working on something, you can come back to it. It'll be saved in drafts. And then you could always go to submit it to just make sure that you've submitted your application, and that it will. And then you'll know that it has been submitted and being seen. And then these other parts will, if you have a report due, you will be able to look at those things on the side, on the left-hand side toolbar. So we're gonna go back to this slideshow. I cannot see this. Okay, final report. So as I said, grantees will be required to do a final report upon completion. You will not be asked to do like a midterm report, like 6 months or anything like that. It'll just be at the end of your report season or of your grant year. Office hours. So I do have office hours, and in the timeline and in the guidelines, there is a Calendly link that will allow you to there it is. That will allow you to set up time with me. It's up for about 30 minutes, and you can use that time any way you want. If that is to, work on your grant application, you want some support in that space, I'm available to do that. If you want to run your idea by me and get some clarity around that, you're free to do that. If you need any further understanding of the grant guidelines, you're free to do that as well. So it's about 30 minutes. You can come back as many times as you need. But it's always helpful just to get some insights or some clarity if you're unclear, and people have found it to be helpful. So those have started, and you can make those times available or select time up through the September 11th or 12th before the application is due. And so here's our timeline. So today we're at the informational workshop. A recording will be available. September 2nd is the deadline to register in Flux, as I went over before, and I shared with you the registration link, the registration page. And then August 15th through the 12th. So August 15th is when the grant opened, and September 12th is when it closed. But during that period, as I said, you can have one-on-one application assistance with me, and you can register through Calendly. To do that, September 12th is the deadline to apply. Applications are due by 5 p.m. on September 12th, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then by November 11th, we will send out grantee award and decline notifications. And then on December 12th, there will be an announcement of grants. And so between November 11th and November 12th, we are also offering optional debrief sessions. So if your application was declined, or this time you have an opportunity to meet with me to go over what were any issues or what were any misses that can be remedied for future applications, because we always want to invite people to come back and not to be discouraged if they are declined anytime they have applied. So we've started making those available since last year, and folks have gotten a lot of insights, and I'm able to go over things that may have been missed or need to be clarified, or a different approach that will help you to refine your approach for next time. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, Justin is on the call. If you have a question, you can just raise your hand and Justin will unmute you, or you can put your question in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Elizabeth, do you have a question?
Yes, for the collaboration one, you said that the other organizations that you're collaborating with will have to submit the same backup material that we will. The Baldwin Center, who is the applicant, will be applying, but we're hoping to apply with 2 other groups to look at a collaboration on a really big level. And but it sounded like they need to submit documentation like the board resolution.
No,
Okay, so just us.
Just the Baldwin Center. You're the lead applicant. So you would submit all those materials, and your partners would just, submit a letter that you're like, if you have an agreement that you guys are in a partnership, either you have an agreement attached or they submit a letter saying that they are agreeing to be a part of your partnership. But they
Great.
don't have to submit the backup documentation. No,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. I'm looking at the questions. Sorry, any examples of past awards for organizational development? Yes, I meant to go over that. Thank you for asking. So we had another organization who submitted for organizational development for board development support. They were looking to figure out how to support a transition of their founding board chair. And they brought in a board development expert to help build the capacity of the board to think differently about their role, to bring in more community representative board members, and to help the founding board director or founding board chair transition out of their role. So that is one example of what has occurred. Does that answer your question, Robin? Okay, great. And then we just had a general grant application for Community Foundation. Can we still apply for these capacity building grants? Yes, you can. Yes, you can apply for the Pontiac Funders Collaborative under the special initiatives if you have applied through the general application for the Community Foundation. Also, there is on the page for the Pontiac Funders Collaborative, we also have a frequently asked questions. So if there are other questions that you may come up with, that might be a good place to see if it's okay as well. Are there any other questions? I will put my email address in here. Let me see, in the chat. So if you do have any questions or, I'm sorry, let's do this. I want to invite you to apply or to make sure to apply or to ask questions. So you can have my email address, and you can always set up a meeting if you're having problems with figuring out how to set up the meeting for the Calendly, then you are free to do that as well. So find out what my email address is. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Oops, I'm gonna do this to everyone. Here you go. So there is my email address. That's Latoya at the work department. So that's LATOYA at THEWORKDEPT.com. And so you can email me there if you have any questions, but also use the website. You can set up a Calendly meeting to go over your application or your plan, and you can bring other people from your organization or your team to, if you want to just run your idea past us or think about what can work for your organization. Is there any other place anyone needs any clarity, or if I was going too fast, or? Okay. Well, thank you again. We look forward to seeing your application. We're also recording this, so if others were not able to join us, they are happy to do it. Also, please share the announcement. There will be another reminder about this grant opportunity coming out in the being sent from the Community Foundation. So please share it with others to apply for, because we really want to make sure that as many folks can apply as possible can. And so, if we're not able to touch them, we just ask you to help us touch others by forwarding the email announcement to them. So everybody is eligible to apply. All right. So I'm glad to help. I'm glad to see everyone here. I look forward to seeing your applications or seeing you in technical assistance. All right. Bye.